Thank you for joining us. I'm Bill Jasper, Senior Editor of the New American Magazine, and we're fortunate today to have with us in studio our foreign correspondent, Alex Newman, who just recently returned from Europe, where he was in Greece. And Alex, you have some really important things to tell us about what you just saw, not only in Greece, but in other parts of Europe, especially when it comes to the issue of the mass migration, which we've been seeing there.
Yeah, and we just did this Deep State in Action special issue, and traveling through Europe, I went all the way from the north all the way down to the south. It becomes so obvious, you see the reality of what we talked about in here, the agenda to de-Christianize Europe, the agenda to destroy nation states, the agenda to basically flood the continent and undermine Western Christian civilization. And this is a very deliberate agenda. I had the opportunity to speak to some high-ranking people in government about this in Hungary and other places. And what's clear is that the globalists, the deep state, the insiders, whatever you want to call them, have a very deliberate program by which, as we expose in here, first they destroyed a whole bunch of countries. They bombed Iraq, they blew up Syria, they blew up Libya, they blew up Afghanistan, Ivory Coast, which no one ever talks about, and caused these mass movements of people and basically invited them into the Western world. So why did they do that? Well, when you go through Europe, you'll see, right? The churches are turning into mosques. The borders are flooded with, and they talk about refugees and they make people think of like families with children running away. When you actually see it with your own two eyes, and I saw this with my own eyes, we're dealing with 90–95% men. This was my own observation, at some of the borders and some of the camps that we passed by. There are no women and children.
And they're young military-age men, the ones who are causing havoc all over Europe, and many of them have been actually identified as being members of various terrorist and or military groups from the countries they're coming from.
That's exactly right. And what I think of, assuming these are legitimate refugees, so-called, I ask any man who's watching this to put yourself in this position. You're in a war zone. Do you leave behind your wife, your daughters, your sisters, your mother, and go to another country and leave all your family and your women in a war zone? That's crazy. So obviously something very different here is going on. We know that George Soros is at the forefront of promoting this agenda. And I think the reason is obvious. People need to get a copy of this special issue and see what's going on, because there is a deliberate plan to undermine the Christian foundations of Europe through so-called multiculturalism, through the mass importation of people from the Islamic religion from North Africa and the Middle East. And there are going to be consequences to this. I think a lot of the secularists haven't yet fully understood the implications of this, but when you undermine the Christian foundations of the culture, that is going to cause all the fruits of the Christian culture to disappear as well. Liberty, human rights, prosperity, advances in science, peace and prosperity. Those things will not survive. If you want to know what it would look like, I just drove through the former Yugoslavia, for example, and you can see multiculturalism in action, right? You can drive through Bosnia or Serbia, and you'll still see the buildings all full of bullet holes. You see big holes in the side from where people were launching rocket-propelled grenades, and you drive past the places where the mass graves were. This is not a future that we should want. And the globalists are engineering this on purpose for a very deliberate reason. We need to be paying attention, and we need to be involved in stopping it.
Well, we appreciate your reporting on this from all over Europe. You've been from north to south and east to west, and we're going to come back and ask you about some more of that.